New York Islanders forward Brock Nelson is playing very well at the World Championships. We'll talk about that, plus more on Maxim Tsyplakov's contract. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. We have got a lot to get to on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, from hirings, firings, trade rumors, free agency, the draft. If it's happening to the New York Islanders, we will have it for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. And it's great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. You know, the New York Islanders, unfortunately, after their first round playoff elimination, obviously, they made some players eligible to appear in the World Championships going on right now. And representing the United States is Brock Nelson. And Brock doing rather well in the World Championships so far. Basically speaking, this is the sixth time that Brock Nelson has represented Team USA in the IIHF Championships, although he hasn't done it since 2017. So, there is that. It's been a big gap. But right now, in 6 games so far with Team USA, Nelson has 3 goals and 4 assists. So that is a 7-point pace in 6 games in this tournament. So Brock Nelson continuing to do his thing. Obviously, for the Islander fan out there, we want to make sure Brock Nelson, we want to see him play well, but most importantly, stay healthy, Brock. Do not get injured in the Worlds. That would be disastrous potentially for the New York Islanders. And, amazingly enough, the goal that Nelson scored is his 19th career goal. That ties him with Russell Buzz Johnson for the all-time lead in career goals for Team USA. So congratulations to Brock Nelson. 19 career goals in the Worlds representing Team USA. And that is a milestone certainly to be proud of for Brock Nelson. Now, Team USA still in the preliminaries right now. Their next game will be tomorrow, Tuesday, against Latvia. And that's a 10:20 a.m. Eastern time start. So if you get a chance to want to watch that game and see how Brock and Team USA do, certainly it is all there to watch. And hopefully the Americans and Brock Nelson continue to play well in that tournament. The tying goal for the record, by the way, the 19th goal, came in a 10-1 win over Kazakhstan, happened in the first period. And the assist to Matt Boldy of the Wild and Jake Sanderson of the Senators. And it was a rebound for Nelson, who put the puck in the net. So Brock Nelson still doing his thing right now for Team USA, and that's, again, great to see. But more important for the Islanders is obviously that Brock stays healthy, and we certainly wish him luck going forward. One other note, by the way, for Islander fans, the Colorado Avalanche eliminated over the weekend in their series against the Dallas Stars. Dallas winning that series in 6 games. So that means that Zach Parise's quest for that elusive Stanley Cup has come to an end. So Zach Parise going to announce his retirement. The Avs losing in double overtime, ironically, on a goal by Matt Duchene. And for Zach Parise, just a sad ending probably to his career. He ends up playing in 1,254 regular season games, 434 career games, 889 points, add 39 goals and 83 points in 122 playoff games. But unfortunately, Parise not able to get the cup. And look, again, in my mind, I was disappointed when Zach Parise decided not to return to the New York Islanders this year because, at Getaway Day a year ago, Parise had said, hey, I'm either going to retire or I'm coming back to the Islanders to get a chance to win that Stanley Cup. And when he made his decision, he basically was saying, you know what? I don't think the Islanders are good enough to win the Stanley Cup. So he casts his lot with the Avalanche, a team that certainly, had a better chance on paper than the Islanders did and advanced one round beyond where the Islanders got. But the Dallas Stars, a darn good team. And it's interesting because on today's Locked On NHL, I got a chance to speak to Kyle Sullivan of Locked On Avalanche, and he talked about how Zach Parise, who was with the rival Minnesota Wild for many years, really won over both his teammates and the Avalanche fans with his work ethic and his determination and the way he played the game. And, if you want to check that out on Locked On NHL, you can watch that interview. But it was interesting to hear how Zach Parise, who meant so much to the Islanders, I think, during his 2-season stint here, also able to accomplish a similar impact on the Avalanche, despite only playing, 30-odd games plus playoffs for Colorado. But at the end of the day, the Stanley Cup eludes him, and Zach Parise goes down along with guys like Marcel Dionne and Brad Park and a few other players, Hall of Famers in the case of those two, who will not win the Stanley Cup during their NHL careers. But still a great career for Zach Parise, obviously an Islanders legacy. In addition to the 2 seasons he spent on Long Island, his dad, J.P. Parise, a big part of the Islanders from 1975 until he left the team at the end of the 70s. But, Parise, the name, one of the few players to be a legacy New York Islander and to make an impact, the Parises both in the 70s and again now in the early 2020s. So congratulations to Zach Parise on what is most likely the end of a very distinguished NHL career. And we wish him luck in any future endeavors, but no Stanley Cup for Zach Parise. All right, we have got a lot more to discuss on today's show. We will basically continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders. We talk about defenseman Alexander Romanov today. How was his season? What is his expected role in the future? Plus, we will also give some more details about the contract of Maxim Tsyplakov, who just signed with the Islanders last week after scoring 31 goals in the KHL. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a two-way forward who played with the Islanders in the mid to late 1990s, who was from Sweden, Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed insurance experts is on hand to walk you through it. You can easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Policy Genius gives you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click on the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders roster right now as we wrap up the season that was and look ahead toward 2024-2025. Everydayers, you'll know that we talked about Ilya Sorokin on Friday's show. We've already talked about Kyle Palmieri, Mike Riley, Matt Martin, and Oliver Wahlstrom. And we're going to go, one player per day until we discuss all the players on the roster. Today, Alexander Romanov, the defenseman, 6'1", 215, who the Islanders acquired in a trade with the Montreal Canadiens. He is 24, won't be 25 until January, and this was his second season with the Islanders. Played in 81 games, so only missed one game all year, had a career high, 7 goals, tied his career high with 22 points, and was an impressive plus 23. That is also a career high. Only 20 penalty minutes. That was a career low for Romanov. And again, Alexander Romanov playing 20 minutes and 50 seconds on average of ice time per game. He had 171 block shots and 157 hits. So the hits were actually down substantially, 41 fewer hits than a year ago, but the blocks were up by 42. So no complaints really about a lack of physicality or sacrifice from Alexander Romanov. And, the thing is that at the age of 24, there is still potential for growth in Alexander Romanov's game. And the 7 goals, I think we saw him being a little more confident when he handled the puck this year than he was in the past. And some of the plays he made, look, he's not going to become Noah Dobson, probably not even going to become Sebastian Aho or Mike Riley as far as his offense is concerned. But if he gives you 5 goals and 20 to 25 points per year while being a solid defensive defenseman, I think that, that is very good as far as what you could ask for and expect with Alexander Romanov. He teamed a lot with Noah Dobson this year. I think that is a solid pairing. Romanov able to sort of cover for Dobson if he takes those gambles offensively and pinches and gets into the offensive zone. Romanov is going to be more responsible defensively. And, on his own part, Romanov had a habit occasionally of getting caught pinching on his own. And I think playing with Dobson as often as he did this season sort of help reduce that. And we didn't see as much of that from Romanov. Like all Islander defensemen, he has had issues clearing his own zone at times. But again, I think that had more to do with the system and just the lack of overall team speed than it did with Romanov specifically. And I think, again, we saw him play well after the coaching change, especially, again, the fact that Alexander Romanov was a plus 23 on a team that had a negative goal differential is important. And look, just to tell you how good that mark was, the next highest plus minus player on the team was Noah Dobson with a plus 12. So Romanov almost doubling that. And I think, his reliability was certainly an asset. The block shots, second on the team. As far as hits, he was fourth on the team. And again, just a reliable defensive defenseman who's going to give you that, expected play. I think he will remain on the top two pairs, depending on what moves the Islanders make in the offseason. If you look ahead, if the Islanders do trade one of their top six defensemen, I think Romanov, he'll either be top pair or second pair. Obviously, if either Ryan Pollock or Adam Pelech are dealt, that will change the pairings, and we may not see Romanov with Dobson so much anymore. That is, again, always subject to change. The other thing I think you want to see from Romanov going forward, you would like to see a little more consistency on the PK from Alexander Romanov. And again, no shorthanded points from Romanov, but he's the kind of guy who you expect to be out there on the PK. And look, the penalty kill, again, I think it was pretty pretty bad all year long. Let's not sort of kid ourselves with that. But it would behoove the Islanders, obviously, to improve in that area. And I think Romanov has to be part of that change where, he needs to play better. In the playoffs, Romanov played in all 5 games, had an assist, and was, again, a +2 on a team that struggled with the plus minus and, averaged 22 minutes and 33 seconds of ice time. And just by comparison, a year ago, 17 minutes and 50 seconds of ice time. And in the playoffs, in 5 games, Romanov blocked 14 shots. That's almost 3 blocks per game. So clearly, Romanov, his role growing with the Islanders as we move forward. And that's an encouraging sign. Again, I think, defensemen typically take a little bit longer to develop than forwards. It's usually defensemen, power forwards, and goalies that take the longest. And I think as far as, developing and reaching their prime, and I think size and physicality has a lot to do with that, and the stamina to, play the full 82 games against the biggest, fastest, and most talented players in the game. So I think we still could see more upside from Alexander Romanov going forward, and I think that is obviously a welcome situation. As for his contract situation, Romanov has 1 more year on his deal at $2.5 million per year cap hit. He will be a restricted free agent with arbitration rights after this season. So as of July 1st, Lou Lamoriello is able to try to extend Alexander Romanov, and it'll certainly be interesting to see what, if anything, is done to lock up Romanov to a more of a long-term deal going forward. Or do they see how he does and then, risk the arbitration? I think it makes more sense if you could sign him to a relatively team-friendly deal to do that. But we'll see what Lou Lamoriello and Romanov and his agent have in mind. We have got more to get to on today's show. We'll talk more about the contract given to Maxim Tsyplakov and where he may fit in to the Islanders lineup. Both of those kind of important things to talk about going forward. Plus, we'll have our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So every day, as you know, Friday, we talked about the Islanders signing 31-goal scorer Maxim Tsyplakov from Russia, and he will join the Islanders this year. We learned a little bit more about his contract over the weekend, and, well, it is interesting as far as the numbers are concerned. He will have a $950,000 cap hit with an AAV of up to $1.95 million. It's a one-year deal. It has an $855,000 base, according to Cap Friendly, a $95,000 signing bonus, and then Schedule A performance bonuses that can get him up to $1 million more. So again, this is a low risk, hopefully high reward if Tsyplakov works out for a player who had 31 goals last year in a breakout season. And, you know, these bonuses, you know, you can get up to $1 million there, and you get them with things like 20 goals, 35 assists, 60 points, number of games played. There are different kinds of milestones that can be reached that would get Tsyplakov's $1 million bonus. Now, we do not know exactly which bonuses he will need to meet, you know, what milestones he will need to meet in order to get to these bonuses. But again, it's one of those things that puts the Islanders in a solid situation as far as, you know, not having to spend a lot of money for a guy who did a lot of scoring in the KHL. Now, obviously, that has to translate to the NHL. And I guess the question becomes now, where does he play? And I think there are a number of possible answers. Now, he's not a fast skater. We talked about that on Friday. But at the same time, even though he's not a fast skater, you know, he seems to be similar to Anders Lee in the way he plays the game. Do you try to put him on the third line with Anders Lee? You certainly, you know, most scouts that I read about and spoke to talked about him being at ideally a middle six forward, which would put him on the second or third line. The Islanders certainly have holes to fill on the first line. and the second line. I don't think you want Pierre Engvall being ideally on your second line. He could fit in really on any of the four lines at this point. You know, you don't know if Martin or Clutterbuck will be back, so you have the fourth line. Certainly, you may have some spots available, but to me, I think third line is probably ideally where you want to start him. Let him play a basic game, maybe insert him on the second power play unit to give him some opportunities there. And then as he adjusts to the North American game, you may be able to move him up into the top six. So, you know, to me, that's what I expect. Start on the third line. If he really shines in preseason and in training camp, maybe you start him on the second line, and you could always move him up and move him around. And one thing we do know about Patrick Roy, he will not hesitate to move. You know, he mixes and matches his lines during a game, let alone you know, after a guy's on a hot streak or a cold streak. If the team is struggling, he will not hesitate to mix and match his lines. So I expect to see plenty of opportunities for Maxim Tsyplakov going forward. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 53rd birthday of former Islanders winger Nicholas Andersson. Andersson, a native of Sweden, 5'9", 176 pounds, drafted by the Quebec Nordique back in the fourth round of the 1989 draft. Played in Sweden for a few years before joining Quebec in the 92-93 season, and became a full-time NHLer in 95-96 when he joined the Islanders. Spent 1.5 seasons on the island before later playing for the Sharks. Had a brief second stint with the Isles in 1999-2000. Later played for Nashville and Calgary before finishing his career with another decade in Sweden. Andersson played 164 career NHL games, 29 goals, 82 points, and 85 penalty minutes. Never played in an NHL playoff game, but boy, did he play a lot of hockey in his native Sweden. His best game as an Islander, very easy to break down, and that is December 10th, 1996. The then Phoenix Coyotes visiting the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Nikolai Khabibulin, the starter for the Yotes. Tommy Salo, the goalie for the Islanders. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, Nicholas Andersson. He ends up assisting on a second period goal by Ziggy Palffy. Then, less than 2 minutes later, assists on a power play goal by Brian Smolinski. Assists again on a shorthanded goal later in the second period by Brian McCabe. And then with 5 seconds left in the second period, Andersson scores a goal from Brian Berard and Claude Lapointe. Oh, and in the third period, he scores again just a minute and a half in. Ziggy Palffy and Brian Smolinski with the assist. The Islanders crushed the Coyotes 8-2, but for our Islanders birthday of the day, Nicholas Andersson, 2 goals, 3 assists. He was a +5. He even had 2 penalty minutes and had 4 shots on goal. So a 5-point game for Nicholas Andersson. 3-point games for McGinnis, Palffy, and Berard. So the Islanders crushing the Coyotes 8-2, and a career game in the NHL, at least for Nicholas Andersson. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders season that was and project roles for the season moving forward. Tomorrow, we will be discussing Simon Holmstrom, so make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.